IBT Practice 2. Listen to part of a lecture in an American history class.
Are you ready to get started? Good. In the last class we discussed the Great Depression of 1929, and today we're going to study about the bank crisis at that time. Before we start, I'd like to ask you a question. What would you likely do if your main bank were to go bankrupt?
I think I'd rush to withdraw all my money from the bank. It's because I'd be worried about, the situation. You know, it's possible I couldn't get my money back.
Yes, that's the so-called bank panic. And the same thing happened during the Great Depression. Some weak banks went broke in the middle of the economic crisis, and many people watching the situation took out their savings. Well, why did this situation bring about the national economic crisis? Anybody? Banks make money by giving loans to companies, and this money comes from the customers' deposits. However, when they thought the banks would become insecure, people didn't deposit their money, which means the banks didn't have money to lend. In addition, lots of businesses went broke. Banks didn't have any company clients to give loans to, and they couldn't collect their loans either. More than 80% of banks went broke during the Great Depression. That's almost 9,000 banks that declared insolvency from 1930 to 1933. Now, the bank panic became the national crisis. So, do you have any idea what's the best solution for this situation?
Are you talking about the New Deal policy? If so, it was a series of programs President Roosevelt introduced to overcome the Great Depression.
Exactly. The first thing the president did was to close all banks, as all banks in the country were...
Sorry, sir, but was it really a solution to close the banks?
Actually, yes. It was because almost every bank was about to collapse, so there was nothing else the president could have done. Roosevelt kept them all closed until he could pass new legislation. During this banking holiday, Roosevelt sent to Congress the Emergency Banking Act, which included the new guarantee policy, or government guarantee. In other words, government promised that, even if one bank goes bust, the clients could still get their money back. People were relieved by this policy and deposited money in their savings accounts. Finally, as we know, the economy which had hit bottom started to expand.
Number 1. What is the lecture mainly about? Number 2. According to the professor, what is a bank panic? Number 3. Why did Roosevelt keep all U.S. banks closed? Listen again to part of the lecture, then answer the question.
Exactly. The first thing the president did was to close all banks, as all banks in the country were...
Sorry, sir, but was it really a solution to close the banks?
Actually, yes. It was because almost every bank was about to collapse, so there was nothing else the president could have done.
Number 4. What can be inferred about the student?